Nicholas Donin was a man who lived in the 13th century AD. Nicholas Donin began his life as a Rabbinic Jew and later became a Catholic Christian. He made 35 charges against the Talmud. The Talmud is an anthology that was created by the Rabbinic Jews. The 35 charges by Nicholas Donin will now be outlined. Charge number 1. The Rabbinic Jews claim that the Lord, God, gave the oral law, which is called the Talmud. The Talmudic passages are at the bottom of the square. Charge number 2. They say that the oral law of the Talmud, was handed down by the word of the Lord God. Charge number 3. And implanted in their minds falsehoods, lies. Charge number 4. They say also that the oral law was preserved for a long time without being written until certain men came whom they call sages, rabbis, and scribes, who rendered it in writing so that it would not slip from men's minds through forgetfulness, the book, the Talmud, of which exceeds the text of the Bible in size. Charge number 5. In it, the Talmud, among other silly things, it is contained that the said rabbinic sages and scribes are worth more than the Old Testament prophets. The rabbis are saying their writings have more authority than the Old Testament. Charge number 6. And they, the rabbis, were able to overturn the words of the written law in the Old Testament. Charge number 7. And it ought to be believed of the same, the rabbinic sages and scribes, that if they said left was right or vice versa, they would turn right into left. Charge number 8. And he, a human, ought to die who does not observe what they, the rabbis, say. Charge number 9. They, the rabbis, prohibit young children from studying the Bible because it is not a virtue, as they say, to learn these things, but preferring the teaching of the Talmud, they have promulgated certain injunctions of their own accord. Charge number 10. Among them, the rabbis, are some who prescribed as law, kill the best Christian. Charge number 11. And let the Christian who rests on the Sabbath or studies the law be placed under punishment of death. Charge number 12. And any of the Christians can be deceived by any artifice or clever trick without sin. The rabbis are endorsing deception. Charge number 13. And anyone who does not wish to be bound by some oath, let him declare in public at the beginning of the year that the vows and oaths of his that he will make in that year are not valid. Charge number 14. Also, 3 Rabbinic Jews, whoever they may be, can release anyone from every oath. Charge number 15. They, the rabbis, also claim that the Lord God sinned. Charge number 16. And that he, God, repented the oath that he made in anger. Charge number 17. And that he, God, cursed himself because he had sworn an oath and asked to be released from it. Charge number 18. And that every night he, God, curses himself because he destroyed the temple and sent the Israelites into slavery. Charge number 19. They, the rabbis, also say that he, God, lies to Abraham. Charge number 20. And that he, God, ordered the prophet Samuel to lie. Charge number 21. And after he, God, destroyed the temple, a specified place measuring 4 cubits was left for him, where he studies the said teaching, the Talmud. Charge number 22. And every day he, God, engages in study of the Talmud, teaching children who die without being instructed in such knowledge. Charge number 23. He, God, also asks himself to have mercy on the Rabbinic Jews. The rabbis are saying that they have authority over God. Charge number 24. And he, God, answers that he was defeated by them, the rabbis, in their disputation about the same teaching, the Talmud. The rabbis are saying that they have authority over God. Charge number 25. And he, God, cries 3 times every day. Charge number 26. They, the rabbis, are also not afraid to say about Christ that his mother conceived him in adultery by a certain man who is commonly called Pandera by them, the rabbis. Charge number 27. And that this same Jesus suffers in hot excrement in hell, because he mocked the words of the above-mentioned sages, rabbis. Charge number 28. They, rabbis, even say that it is a sin to speak any unclean words, except those that are known to verge on contempt of the church. Charge number 29. And they, rabbis, use certain words with which they disparage the Roman pontiff and Christianity. Charge number 30. 3 times a night in the prayer that they claim is the most worthy, they, the rabbis, curse ministers of the church, kings, and all others, even Jews themselves, who are their enemies. Charge number 31. It is also contained in the said teaching that Rabbinic Jews do not suffer the punishment of hell for more than 12 months, and the punishment of Gehenna cannot harm them any longer than that. Charge number 32. And he, a human who studied the aforesaid teaching, the Talmud, in the present life is safe in the future. Charge number 33. And they, the rabbis, regard all who fast as sinners. Charge number 34. Saying that Adam sexually lay with all the beasts, and the serpent sexually lay with Eve. Charge number 35. And that him sexually abused Noah, his own father. In the 2nd century AD, the man Celsus said, quote, Jesus of Christianity had come from a village in Judea. His mother had been turned out of doors by her husband, who was a carpenter by trade, on being convicted of adultery with a soldier named Panthera. Being thus driven away by her husband, she gave birth to Jesus, a bastard. End of quote. Celsus acquired this information from the Rabbinic Jews. The Rabbinic Jews have spread lies about Jesus and Virgin Mary since the 2nd century AD and 1st century AD. This narrative later appeared in the Talmud and in the document Toldat Yeshu. Toldat Yeshu had an earlier version from the 2nd century AD containing the narrative. Chaim Maccabee, a rabbinic Jewish scholar, said, it appears from the commentaries of Rashi and the Tosafos on the Talmud that all the passages mentioning Jesus by name were regarded as referring to the Christian Jesus. End of quote. The rabbinic rabbi, Moses Maimonides, said, quote, he, Jesus the Nazarene, was a Jew because his mother was a Jewess, although his father was a Gentile, the Roman soldier Panthera. He impelled people to believe that he was the Messiah. End of quote. Chaim Maccabee said, quote, the passage in which Jesus' punishment in hell is described also seems to refer to the Christian Jesus. It is a piece of anti-Christian polemic dating from the post-70 Common Era period. End of quote. Eitan Baghdadi, a rabbinic rabbi, said, quote, the Talmud says that the founder of Christianity has been sentenced to boil in feces. End of quote. Stephen Boehm, a rabbinic Jew and director, said, quote, lastly, the passage Sanhedrin 43a in the Talmud suggests rabbinic willingness to take responsibility for the execution of Jesus of Christianity. Roy Schoeman, a former rabbinic Jew and student of the Talmud, said, quote, the Talmud itself relates some of the basic details of Jesus' life, death, and ministry. End of quote. Robert Travers Hedford, a scholar of the Talmud, said, quote, there can be no reasonable doubt that the Yeshu who is variously called Ben Stada and Ben Pandera is the historical Jesus, the founder of Christianity. End of quote. The rabbinic rabbi Moses Maimonides said, quote, the Christians are idol worshippers. End of quote. Moses Maimonides said, quote, a mezit, a promoter of idolatry, should be stoned to death. End of quote. Moses Maimonides held the viewpoint that Christians should be stoned to death because they accept Jesus as divine, as the Messiah and God incarnate. Moses Maimonides said, quote, it is a mitzvah commandment, however, to eradicate Jewish traitors since they sway the people away from God, as did Jesus of Nazareth and his students. End of quote. Moses Maimons wanted to eradicate the Christians. Moses Maimonides is following the laws in the Talmud, which were created by the Pharisees. The rabbis are satanic. The rabbis are worshiping the devil. The rabbis are part of the synagogue of Satan.